Hey fam, so there is just one 5-part thing you need to understand about this administration. Corruption, theft, graft, greed, and cruelty. That is it. Corruption, theft, graft, greed, cruelty. What do I mean? This is the most corrupt administration in the history of the United States. Donald Trump is personally enriching himself off the presidency in a way no previous president has, between the crypto schemes and all of the other ways he's personally profiting, going to foreign countries and getting them to invest in golf courses, his businesses, his family, making all the money in the world. Total corruption. Also corrupting the Justice Department, making them go after and prosecute people he's deemed his enemies personally, that he's mad at because they prosecuted him for his actual crimes. Total corruption. Then there's theft. When Donald Trump, and I do say when he gets Pamela Joe and the DOJ to pay him $230 million to basically bribe them the way he bribed CBS and the way he bribed ABC, you know who's going to pay for that? You. They're stealing your money because it is the taxpayer who funds the DOJ. So that payment will come from your pockets, just as the big tax cut for the billionaires came from your pockets, while you can't get food stamps and you can't get health care subsidies. So that's the theft. The graft, the Republicans are in on it. Every single Republican and friend of Donald Trump and billionaire pal of his, all making money off of what should be the federal government and the public spaces. He's handing over our national parks and our national public spaces to be drilled, to be whatever, because they're friends of the president. That's the graft. And the greed is kind of obvious, right? They're all just greedy motherfuckers who are stealing from you in order to enrich themselves while everyone else is made poor. And the fifth piece, the cruelty. What the PO folks who vote for Trump get is not farm subsidies, not food stamps, not assistance. They get to go broke and be poor, but they get to watch the people they hate be beat up, dragged in the streets, thrown into detention. They get to watch the cruelty toward the brown people they hate, and that is what they get. They get to feel superior to black people who get fired and laid off, and the cruelty toward non-white people, let's be clear, and toward trans people and other minorities. That is what his po-ass base get, because that's all that they crave. They're like vampires. They need to drink the cruelty toward the people they hate, and that's what they get. Everyone else gets the corruption, the theft, the graft, and the greed, and all y'all little Trumpers, what you get is the cruelty, because the cruelty is always the point when it comes to conservatives. It's what conservatism is: cruelty that backs corruption, theft, graft, and greed. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
If you ever needed proof that America has two justice systems, one for the powerful and one for everyone else, let me show you. On one side, we have former Congressman George Santos, who lied, cheated, and stole over $500,000 in campaign funds, donor money, and even people's identities. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. And guess what? His sentence was commuted, cut short, by Donald Trump. He's already out. On the other side, we have Willie Simmons. In 1982, he robbed a man of $9. But he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He's still there over 40 years later. $500,000 stolen. Freedom. $9 stolen, life in prison. Same country, same system, different outcomes. And they still call this justice. Until we face the fact that our justice system protects status and not fairness, we are going to keep watching men like George Santos walk free while we watch men like Willie Simmons die behind bars. That is not justice. That's America. And it's time that we stop pretending otherwise.
Oh yeah, guys, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you are all doing good. Yeah, you know, God is remembering Black Americans. From the horrors of slavery to the injustices of Jim Crow segregation, America often acted as if the past could be buried and forgotten. But God does not forget. The pain, the resilience, and sacrifices of the foundational Black American ancestors still echo in the land. This is still shaping the present and calling us to remember, honor, and seek justice. So guys, in this video, we are here to reflect on the enduring legacy of the foundational Black Americans, the trials they endured, and the spiritual truth that no injustices goes unnoticed by God. So guys, join us as we continue their struggle, celebrating their resilience, and confront the echoes of history that still resonate today. So guys, I'm just going to roll these clips, then I'll be coming back with more commentaries. Stay tuned.
Despite the government shutdown, U.S. taxpayers' funding to Israel will continue unimpeded. Wow. Paychecks for our own government employees will be delayed. SNAP welfare food program benefits will also be delayed. Government projects will not be going through, and even paychecks to our own U.S. military, our own soldiers, that will be delayed too. But payments and benefit to blue states, country, and military, that's going to continue on even though they're supposed to be in a ceasefire. The great noticing continues, and this just keeps on getting ridiculous.
Okay, since no one's going to say it, I'm going to say it. Let's just call it what it is. This Trump administration isn't some showcase of brilliance or strategy or moral authority. It is a showcase of white mediocrity, broadcast for the entire world to see. If you think about it, they scream about being the greatest. They scream about being the smartest, the most patriotic. But when the spotlight hits them, what do we see? Corruption, incompetence, lies stacked on top of lies. A government so insecure it has to redraw maps, it has to silence voters, it has to attack its own citizens just to hold on to power. And the world is watching. Countries overseas are looking at America, shaking their heads saying, this is America? This is what we were told was the standard for democracy? Because for centuries, whiteness carried itself alongside synonymous with excellence, while dismissing black and brown excellence as inferior. But Trump's administration has blown that myth to pieces because globally, people see it now. Whiteness in power doesn't guarantee wisdom. It doesn't guarantee justice. It doesn't even guarantee competence. All it guarantees is access. Access, handed down through a rigged system that protects mediocrity as long as it wears the right skin. So let's be clear. This ain't about every white person, but it is about the fact that Trump has exposed the truth. That the old story of white superiority was never superiority at all. It was all smoke and mirrors. And now the smoke has cleared. So what comes next, right? If America wants respect on the world stage again, it won't come through Trump. It won't come through clinging to whiteness. It will come through honesty, justice, and multiracial democracy that values talent, not skin. Because the global stage just learned what we've always known. When you strip away the privilege, white mediocrity can't hold a candle to black excellence.
Ridiculous.
Not only is America not a Christian nation, but according to this American lawyer and theologian, it's a demonic nation. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Colton. I grew up a Pentecostal pastor's kid, went to school to get degrees in historical Christian theology, and I don't think January 6th is anywhere close to one of the worst things that's happened in American history. But it is a particularly good illustration of what this video is about. We saw an enraged mob of violent Christian nationalists carry American flags and Jesus Save banners into the Capitol during an attempted coup. And in the aftermath, I remember seeing one pastor say that this was a revival, not a riot. I saw another pastor say that the insurrection was comparable to the walls of Jericho falling down. That's how they viewed it. And more than a few Christians defended it as the hand of God moving through patriots. There was this guy named William Stringfellow who was a civil rights attorney, an activist, and a theologian who lived in Harlem during the 1960s. He wrote this book called An Ethic for Christians and Other Aliens in a Strange Land. Stringfellow used the language from Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12 to talk about America being the demonic principality of the power of death. In this passage, someone, purportedly Paul, although that's hotly contested by the scholarship, says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And in context, this is essentially naming the unseen forces that work through empires and institutions and ideologies. Not just like metaphors, but Stringfellow actually took this seriously. For him, these powers and principalities are the spiritual and institutional realities that shape human life, and often without our awareness. Stringfellow didn't think that demonic principalities came wearing horns and red capes, but they came dressed in flags and standing in pulpits, using the language of freedom, family, and faith. He saw them as real forces that were spiritual, systemic, and seductive. He saw them operating as governments, corporations, and even churches. Really any institution that takes on life of its own and demands allegiance, resists accountability, and functions to preserve its own survival at the expense of truth. Stringfellow said that these forces aren't always obviously evil, that they pretend to be good, because they disguise themselves as righteous, and they speak in the name of God while dealing in death. Put simply, he saw America as a principality pretending to be God. For Stringfellow, this is why so many churches have lost the capacity to tell the truth. And this is why Christians defend war as holy or see billionaires as blessed, use law and order language like it's sacred, but then mock mercy. No wonder so many churches have prioritized the idea of personal salvation. It allows you to ignore systemic sin, and you start to see flags treated with more reverence than the cross. Stringfellow believed that when the church endorses or baptizes empire, that what it's doing is worshiping death, because the one thing that the powers always wield is death. Not just physical death, but spiritual death, the death of imagination, the death of empathy. It's kind of funny that we're seeing so much language come up today from American evangelicals talking about toxic empathy. Crazy. Stringfellow says that this is the death that comes when you no longer believe anything can change, and so you give yourself over to the way that things are. And he says that this is how the powers win, not by making you serve them consciously, but by making you believe they're inevitable. And he says that they do this strategically, and he actually outlines 8 strategies that the powers use to sustain their influence and subdue their conscience. For time purposes, I can only cover probably 3. One of these strategies is the denial of truth. He says that the powers lie blatantly and systemically, that they distort the facts and suppress evidence to amain the illusion of righteousness. And I think you can see this clearly in the way that American institutions dismiss or minimize the climate crisis, even when the scientific consensus is clear, or in a way that somebody might claim an election was stolen with no credible proof, using the lie to justify further authoritarian responses. Or even how they erase the human toll of immigration policies by not acknowledging the deaths or the trauma caused by detentions, deportations, and border enforcement. Another strategy he outlines is what he calls doublespeak and overtalk in the Orwellian sense. And he's not just talking about lying here. Here he's talking about drowning the truth in euphemism and noise. So think about the way that we use terms like enhanced interrogation to mean torture, or collateral damage to mean dead civilians. Pundits and politicians will often flood the discourse with slogans like law and order, things that obscure who's actually making the laws and whose order is being preserved in the first place. And I think that when the language is corrupted, so is the conscience. Then there's surveillance and harassment. Stringfellow says that powers protect themselves by targeting dissent. And you can see this in the way that law enforcement agencies are starting to track protesters with facial recognition, or even as quietly as IRS audits and donor blacklists for faith leaders who challenge Christian nationalism. That's happening. Keep in mind, this was written in the 1970s, the early 70s. He talks about journalists facing threats for exposing state or corporate wrongdoing, and clergy who speak out being dismissed as, just political or divisive or even unpatriotic. The goal here isn't just to punish, it's to intimidate, to discourage anyone else from stepping out of line. And this is why Stringfellow didn't just call the church to critique the state. He was actually calling the church to exorcise the state, to name the idols clearly, and to unmask the spiritual lies that are there beneath the political power. Stringfellow was begging the church to refuse to worship at the altars of relevance, respectability, and return on investment. And in a world where even the church can become possessed by the spirit of empire, Stringfellow believed that the only faithful church is the one that looks like Christ, poor, despised, and truth-telling, willing to die rather than to kill.
Oh yeah, guys, from the chains of slavery to the injustices of Jim Crow, America often tried to bury the truth, pretending as if the suffering of foundational Black Americans was forgotten. But God does not forget. Every tear, every cry, every act of oppression is remembered in the heavens. Yes, and the ancestors were foundational to the building of America. They tilled the fields, they built the cities, and contributed to a society that too often denied their humanity. Yet their struggles were not erased by time, nor their sacrifices forgotten by God. Yes, and we can even think on the foundational to the building of this America with pride and weight. Yeah, yes, and even after the chains were broken, the shadow of oppression lingered. Segregation, discriminatory laws, and systemic inequality tried to silence the voices of Black Americans. The land itself bore witness to their pain, but God remembered. Yes, yeah, and we have seen God's justice and prevailing. America may try to forget, but God remembers the prayers of the ancestors, the cries of the oppressed, and the courage of those who endured echoed through history. Their lives were not in vain. Their struggles call people to remember, to honor, and continue the work of justice and righteousness. Yes? So, guys, as we walk forward, let us never forget the sacrifices of foundational Black Americans. Let their stories guide people. Let their stories inspire people and remind people that while history may be buried by human hands, it is never hidden from God. So guys, as I was perusing through the social media pages, people were commenting about this, that it doesn't, someone said that it doesn't matter where you run to. If you take that same mean-spiritedness with you, you are still going to face God's wrath upon you. Yes, and people were also saying that all will be paid in full. Segregation was not a problem, but that we were always meant to be separate. That is what someone said, and there was a response that after finding out the truth, the civil rights movement was one of the worst things that has happened to the United States. Why? Because God wanted people to pray and go back to Him. So if we did, He would have delivered us. Accepting the civil rights movement has set us back. That is what FBA said. Yes. So and one person also said that they can bring it on. I've been praying more than eating. I've been thanking Him over asking. This experience of prophecy has been better than all other experiences combined. Yes. So, and then another person said that birds of the same feather flock together, that you can't expect better, just don't forget their evil doings, so history will hold them accountable because they are under Satan. Yeah? And another person said that the only safe space in America is under the protection of Jesus Christ. When are Americans going to stop paying taxes? Another one said that, and I think about these taxes, there's a video I've made about it. Yes. And someone said that FBAs are the Israelites and they know it. Yes. Yeah. We have the law of reciprocity, guys. Yeah. The Yahweh's laws said you reap what you sow. Yeah, and guys, that's all I have for you for today. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, all credit belongs to the original creators of the video. Thank you for watching. Kindly give this video a thumbs up and also like the video, subscribe, hit that subscription button, and also share this video to get to a wider audience. The echoes of the ancestors remain in the land, in the hearts, and in people's faith. We remember God remembers, and through His remembrance, there is justice, healing, and hope for generations to come. Yes, guys, thank you so much for watching. Be blessed and have a nice time. Peace be with you.